Hey, y'all, just had a quick question over email about what our general strategy should be when approaching generic integrals. For instance, when do I just integrate it regularly? When do I try algebra? And when do I use sub? So I want you guys to be thinking in a similar way to when we derive. For instance, if we had the function f of x equals x cubed, our first thing we always tried was, can I just do it regularly? And we totally could. 3x squared. Our next progress, if we couldn't do just a basic power rule, for instance, if I had something like x squared plus 1 over x, we asked, could I do some algebra before going to our product rule, quotient rule, blah, 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 blah. Which in this case, we totally could. We could say, this is x squared over x plus 1 over x, which is just x plus 1 over x. And then we could totally derive this once you switch this to x to the negative 1. If we couldn't do it regularly, or we couldn't do algebra to it, so for instance, in this case right here, let's just flip the last fraction. H of x equals x over x squared plus 1. Only then did we go to a quotient rule, or an extra rule. So, repeating, we did regular rules, basic power rule, algebra, and then ultimately we relied on something like the quotient rule. Turns out it's the same for integration. So for instance, this guy up here, I first off asked, can I do a basic integration power rule? Which in this case, I totally can. Add 1 to the power, divide by the power you land on, so the 5's will cancel, and tack on the plus c. Let's try this one. Can I do a basic power rule? Well, no. Okay, can I do some algebra? It turns out yes. If you believe me, kind of distributing in that x, we'll get a 5x minus 4 over x with respect to x. My dog is acting a fool. And this one, all of a sudden, we do have an actual rule for. We could say, for instance, that this guy equals 5/2 x squared minus 4 natural log of the absolute value of x plus c. So algebra allowed us to simplify down to a basic rule. Last but not least, if you can't have a basic rule or you can't do algebra, this is where u sub is required. So for instance, in this case, we'd have u equals x squared to the minus 7, du over dx equals 2x, meaning dx is equal to du divided by 2x, and then we'd be off to the races. So hopefully that kind of gets that question. Always try your basic rules first, then see if you can do some simple algebra, and then ultimately, if you can't do either of those, do some u sub. Let me know if y'all have any questions, and Chase and Ollie both say hi.